But yeah, so you experienced HoloLens firsthand.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, it was
I didn't
pretty
know that.
cool. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, I'm sure people have like seen.
It's
some
not
of the
smoke and mirrors. It's not BS. It actually
It looks
works.
really gimmicky.
I mean, the thing is that anything with conceptual hardware is always that it's kind of looking at Connect when it's still, in its very early stages, right? Where you're like, okay, this thing has promise and it's kind of cool. But then there's that kind of gap between that and final hardware and final launch, which is, how does it actually perform in the real world as a final product?
Well,
but
so wait, are you
saying
you think it'll get better or worse?
I think it can only get better, honestly.
Because I mean, theoretically, what you're playing with is like $100,000 prototype, and when it has to be mass manufactured and sold, does the quality go down, or through refinement does the quality go up, or do those two things just offset each other and it ends up?
I think unlike Connect, this has a lot more like commercial push behind it. Like some of the applications, like the 3D like modeling, in particular, I think are way more applicable to like enterprise. Just businesses that are actually creating things like that motorcycle they were showing in that sizzle reel.
Yeah.
Even being able to, use it for the way that Connect has been used in some situations for like surgery. Right, or like physical therapy, like those kind of situations. So I can see like that basically sort of funding the hardware being at a certain place, so they don't have to make it super expensive.
Right.
Or it will be expensive at first, and then
Of course.
if you're just really into that kind of technology, then you're going to pony up for early editions of it.
Are there many practical like video game software applications for this? Do you think?
So it's really interesting you asked that because up in Redmond they showed us what
I love
they
that you
called
said practical video game. As that's like, what? Oxymoron, Mitch.
How will Gone Home play on HoloLens?
So up in the Redmond, they had one demo in particular they kept calling Minecraft inspired. I think they were trying really hard to not
dudes,
imply.
You own the IP.
I think they were just trying really hard not to imply, like with you and the whole like we may have a guess, we may not have a guess with episode 200.
Don't paint us into a corner.
They don't want to They don't want to paint themselves in a corner. So that was basically you put the HoloLens on and it kind of spreads out this Minecraft world over this living room setup.
Which is amazing.
Which was pretty cool. I didn't find that the resolution was, super amazing. Of course, like those doctored images they showed is way better looking than what I saw. Still very cool, though, because it really does do this mixed reality thing that they were talking about where, you have like a tower and some zombies on top of this bookshelf, but if you wanted to create like a moat or like basically this gigantic gap between them so the zombies couldn't storm the fortress, you can. So you're basically digging into your bookshelf and that space or that image disappears and it creates a hole, the image of a hole, and you look down the hole and there's like lava at the bottom.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And it does all this on the fly.
Mm-hmm. And it didn't seem very laggy at all.
Really
it was more like Connect lag, not like I'm processing this so you can see it lag, if that makes sense.
So I wonder, like, what seems really cool to me is, like, the applications of taking this thing in a mobile sort of fashion, right? Like, if you were to go from room to room, whether it be, would it be able to sort of, like, generate these environments on the fly based on, like, the angle of view that you were,
They're
looking
saying
at?
that you should, from what they said, it sounds like, in theory at least, you should be able to, because they're saying that the hardware is actually processing the room in real time. So it is whatever you're looking at, it is bringing that in and processing that.
Yeah, in theory, that should already be rendered material. And then if you, in the example of Minecraft, you start destroying it, then it's not like a procedural thing. It's probably already there.
Huh.
A procedural game could be really interesting.
Are you wanting like a horror game where Freddy Krueger like jumps out at you when you turn the corner in your dark house?
That's kind of where
fall over your own real-life table,
and then you crack your head open and really die.
Yeah.
That's kind of what my
there's a 911 button on
my
that.
mind jumps to sort of horror applications for these sort of more immersive types of experiences, because that's just where my mind goes. Is that would be the most effective way of putting something like that to use.
Instantly, my mind is like, I want to fly a jet in first person,
like an actual sim?
things like I want vehicle stuff. I want first person experiences. I have no interest in playing like a Dead Space game in that at all. Like I don't want over the shoulder shooters with HoloLens stuff like popping up. Like first person stuff seems really, really, really interesting.
Agree. And then
there's another part
go
to
ahead.
that, though.
Yeah.
Just for anyone who was wondering specifically about how Xbox One and HoloLens will tie together, there was something that came up during the group interview that we had with Phil Spencer, and he said something, I'm going to actually quote here. He said something to the effect of, very closely to what he said, "To me, there's not a successful consumer electronics device on the planet where gaming isn't a primary form of app category and thing, and I think HoloLens will work out the same way. I think gaming will be important." But he went on to say that he thinks that HoloLens first needs to kind of establish itself as a standalone product and, like, you know, stand on its own merits. So I think that's why they're focusing on that first, and that's why they didn't really do as much heavy emphasis on gaming. So again, kind of with the Battletoads t-shirt, he didn't promise anything for Xbox One, but he did not promise anything for
almost like a
Xbox
Kinect
One.
thing, right? Like they want to have practical applications for it that aren't games, and then as that
But
becomes
more so,
viable
yeah.
and they kind of figure out how the technology works, you can better implement video game software into that.
Well, that's actually that's what I was thinking, but except the opposite of Kinect, where Kinect they tried to use the console, the games as the way to inject it into the mass market, and it worked in the sense of it was like the highest selling peripheral ever for a while, and then, you know, turned out it just didn't pan out so great, and now no one cares anymore. But so this to me sounds like, okay, we really want this thing to work long term. Let's let, you know, development communities and PC sort of hobbyists or whoever else just make weird things with it, and we'll learn a whole bunch of stuff. And then once it's refined, so the Kinect wasn't really refined when it released on the Xbox, right? It was sort of hope this works.
Yeah.
So maybe they're trying to refine it first and then go, okay, we know this thing's ready, we know this thing works. Before we invest hundreds of millions of dollars to mass market it into the Xbox One and future Xbox, let's prove it, shall we?
Did they have a window for release at all? I missed so much of this. Like, I caught Twitter.
Yeah, well, you were
updates 'cause I was in
overseas,
Sweden.
so-
Yeah.
We were having drinks and dinner, and we were like, "Oh my god, they announced the holograms for $2."
They just said basically that it would be, if I remember right,
Didn't they
something about the launching within the window of Windows 10 or something like that. So my guess is that it's more of a like they're going to allow developers to start playing with it when Windows 10 is more final. But I don't know what that means necessarily for the release of the actual HoloLens hardware itself.
Right. This is one of the best parts about working at IGN is that there's no way I'll be able to afford this thing when it comes out, nor would it even really make sense probably in my day-to-day life.
But we'll get to play with the
we'll
one
get to
Alaina
play
gets.
with we'll get to spend company money to get one. Woohoo!
No, it's really cool. It's really interesting because I came relatively fresh off of CES, tried Oculus Crescent Bay demo, and that one is really great for VR. But I actually find myself much more immersed in this whole thing with like alternate reality, like virtual reality, anything related to that, when it's augmented.
Yeah.
Because my brain, I think, feels more grounded when I still know
Makes
there are
sense.
real-world objects around.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like just kind of locked into this headset.
It's probably a little less nausea-inducing than
that's the other thing. I'm very
VR
sensitive to
potentially
that.
is too. So
I was totally fine through that whole like hour of demos that we had.
good stuff. And then how about the rest of the Xbox stuff? I mean, did you get to see? They didn't show off the streaming to a PC, did they? Or did they?
They did on stage. So
Just on stage, but not like a behind closed
not
doors
behind the
thing.
scenes. So on stage, they did do during the keynote. They did the Forza Horizon 2 stream. I'm sure you guys saw that.
Yeah.
Let me see. I have like so many notes just from what we talked about with Phil Spencer after the keynote, because the keynote was actually designed more for general tech press,
Sure.
as opposed to specifically gaming. There's just. I can just kind of go down the list of things that you guys talked about.
Yeah,
which
hit the
was,
high points of what you saw that we didn't see by watching the conference.
Just to quickly recap, Windows 10 is confirmed, because I know you guys weren't sure about that. It's confirmed that it's coming to Xbox One. Phil Spencer said that, just like any other dashboard update that rolls out to Xbox One, it's just going to be kind of folded into that.
Right.
So at one point, down the road this year, we're just going to get an update, and that's going to include the switch over from Windows 8 to Windows 10.
Mitch, I think it was you who predicted the slim Xbox One will be for the holidays. It could be it'll be almost like a relaunch of the console, right?
Yeah.
New dashboard, new slim console, Halo 5, boom.
Yeah. All of that sounds really good.
Yep.
Dashboard is going to change, maybe. He said that there's a slide. So there's a slide. I don't know if the really eagle-eyed, people who are watching that keynote, there was a slide that kind of showed Windows 10 on all different devices, right? Phone, tablet, Xbox One, PC. And he was saying that is not a clue as to what the dashboard could look like. So, again, not promising that there will be a change, but, with the...
We've rearranged the boxes, everyone.
It sounds like there will be some sort of cosmetic difference.
There's going to be
right?
something that's going to be different, especially...
Will it be as drastic as, the Xbox 360's current dashboard to the Blades?
Oh, my God.
Well, yeah, the Blades...
I loved Blades.
I love the
Everyone
Blades.
did.
I thought the Blades...
But, guys, come on.
them.
The Blades would not work anymore.
No, not
There's
at all.
just too much content.
Yep.
It was great for back then.
Yeah.
I liked it. Minimal. Which is how I think everything should be.
I used to have the XDK for that sitting around somewhere,
like an old
but
debug.
I don't think I do anymore.
Just for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah.
Never update this one.
Can't run anything
I think
on
even
it.
Microsoft has probably burned all of those files by now.
Who needs it?
So DirectX 12 is only going to be available on Windows 10.
Right,
So-
and we know that's coming to Xbox One, so...
Right. So just in case people were confused about that, DirectX 12 only available to Windows 10. Phil Spencer said specifically they felt comfortable with that on the game side because they're offering that free upgrade period. So and just to be clear, it's a year from when Windows 10 launches. So from whenever that launch date is till the next year, anyone who's running Windows 7, 8, 8.1 can upgrade for free.
And I think you and I were talking off the air. So on last week's Major Nelson podcast, which, by the way, they gave us a very kind shout-out for the Jeff Strain interview on there, Eric Neustetter, did say, he clarified that you will never be charged for it after the first year. It's not like a free for the first year and then a subscription. He clarified, no.
Oh, that's good.
It is
good.
Because there was a weird moment after the press conference where all the press started asking questions, and somebody specifically asked that.
Yeah.
Will there be a charge after the first year? And the presenters on stage kind of gave a little bit of a confused look.
Malfunction.
And they said...
Syntax error.
So basically they said, well, our business model isn't changing. And so the rest of us were like, but you didn't actually explicitly say you're not charging. So we're going to ask this 4 more times. And it was just this back and forth of each party saying the same thing to each other. So it's good to know.
It's a yes/no question.
I know. The PR bot Android just puts a gun in its mouth and pulls the trigger. Okay, well,
I'm done.
Reel in a new bot.
So kind of try to go through this a little bit quicker. So crossplay. So the questions for that. So Minecraft is supposed to be supported as well, in addition to Fable Legends. That was said by Mark Ibarra.
Cool.
In a different session that I had with him.
This is exactly why they bought Minecraft. This now makes the purchase so clear. Being able to have crossplay between Xbox and PC players would be amazing.
Oh, and just across all these other devices too.
Yeah. So the difference, if you want to get kind of into the nitty-gritty of things, is that between the games for Windows versus now is that, so for crossplay here with Windows 10, that all developers have the access to the same API, which means that whatever an Xbox One developer has access to, a
PC developer
has as well. So it makes it a lot easier for them to do this kind of play sort of thing. We did talk about that mouse and keyboard combination versus controller thing. Phil Spencer was saying that they are looking into ways to possibly make that a little bit more even across the board, whether that's through offering... The thing is that they talked about it really heavily, and Phil Spencer really tried to drill this point home with press when we were talking with him, which is that this is meant to be a platform. So there's Microsoft Game Studios, right, that is developing for this. But overall, they're trying to provide this platform so that other developers can come in with their business model and their, decision to whether to make crossplay available or not available.
That's good.
So that also, he thinks, could be influenced by genre, right? So, strategy games, not as likely to cross over. But something like Fable Legends and RPG makes sense.
Sure.
Minecraft makes sense.
Crackdown would be a good candidate.
And so for shooters, right, where you could have this potentially huge gap in competitive advantage. Then
Shadowrun.
So talking about
Counter-Strike.
ways to even that out, whether it's like player versus enemy sort of mode, PvE, or having certain, like, as he called them, playlists where you have PC versus
Console
PC,
player,
console versus console, and then like mix for people who don't really care about the difference. Or, people...
I'll take you on. I don't care. Ah!
No, more likely it's Sean and I going like, yeah, we'll kill you, console scrubs.
Yeah.
Go ahead and try, man.
I'm going to kill you until you die from it.
One thing that I asked about is that there's that whole cross-platform chatting, right? So voice and messaging. On the PC side, totally free. You do not need an Xbox Live Gold account.
Good.
And I think that answers that one. Kind of tied into that for the cross-buy question you guys had.
Yeah.
Is dependent again on the publisher. So whoever is actually creating the game gets to decide whether or not they want to put it on multiple versions of
Well, that's
Windows
good. I mean,
10.
Xbox Live has been, for a while, it was largely a strength, but then it started to, some cracks in the armor started to show up that it had been a very closed platform for a very long time. So to see it open up like this a little bit is, I think, forward-looking and welcome.
And then the last major component that I think people might have questions about is the whole streaming Xbox One games to PC. And
or a Surface tablet, right?
Right. So here's the thing. So
Any Windows 10 device, right?
except when it's not a Windows 10 device.
Oh, great.
So when I was at the event, they said, I asked if Windows 10, this in-home streaming stuff, would support Surface tablets, like things that are running Windows RT. And they said, basically the answer was yes, if the operating side guys say that they're supporting ARM devices. And originally at the event, they said that they were going to support those devices. Windows 10, a form of Windows 10, was going to make it to those devices.
Yeah.
Then after we all got home from the event, they backed away from that and they said, well, some functionality will be coming to
I forget what I said 2 minutes ago.
some
Sounds
functionality
like
will
the
be
Xbox
coming
One announcement event.
to Surface tablets. So if you have a Surface or Surface RT or Surface 2 tablet, you're kind of probably out of luck in terms of a full upgrade, unfortunately, which I think is really sad that they're not going to be supporting that. Also, they haven't committed to supporting streaming to phones. So even though those phones will be running Windows 10, they're just trying to decide whether or not a tiny screen is really worth it.
The device must be larger than the controller itself in order to stream onto it.
That's basically what Mike Barr was saying when we were talking to him. So just some specs in case you're curious. Right now in their labs, they're streaming at 720/30. They're looking into offering support for 1080/30 and 1080/60.
Nice.
But that's
1080/60 is like a pipe dream.
right. But that's largely going to be dependent on what your connection is, and I think you're pretty much going to have a wired connection.
Right.
Google Fiber.
Well, no, that's in-house, so it's
Okay.
all dependent on your home network setup. So anything wireless obviously can potentially introduce interference. So
Google Fiber with a gigabit Ethernet.
Yeah.
with a gigabit router.
yeah. So I think
Damn you, Charlotte Raleigh area! You got Google Fiber.
yeah, Atlanta
And
too. I think.
Nashville. Like what?
Yep.
We're gonna be San Francisco's gonna be the last city to
It's
ever.
not even going to be San Francisco. They're looking at San Jose. So that's like
Well, it's
50
flat.
miles
and
from
small.
us.
San Francisco is too difficult. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Anyway, and then the last bit of information is just it's likely that you'll see different resolutions depending on what's being streamed to.
Right.
So
Okay. Good stuff. I mean, I'm very curious to see what Windows does and its effect on Xbox gaming. DirectX 12 should be the most tangible effect. And do we know, Alaina, when if developers have builds of the DirectX 12 API yet, or
They would have to, right?
right? Isn't it?
They would
Has
have
it,
to.
has
I
it
mean,
rolled
I
out to
think-
devs yet?
I don't. I mean, they didn't really talk about that
No?
as much.
Okay.
I haven't really been keeping up to date on DirectX 12, honestly, in the last month or so. I mean, like Mitch, I would assume just because, for example, NVIDIA's cards that they released last September are supposed to be DX12 ready.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that they have some specs and some things kind of already in mind.
Well, our potential guest next week would be actually the perfect people to ask about that. So guess we'll find out. Well, good stuff. Sounds like you had a pretty good time, and you were impressed by their overall show.
Yeah, it was the first time I've been to a Microsoft show in a long time where I felt like, and I'm talking more on the tech side of things, not the gaming side of things.
Right, not Xbox.
Where I thought, maybe they'll finally actually be able to really get the whole company behind this initiative. Because I think we've seen this before already with Windows 8, where they tried to get the whole company on board, and it just didn't quite gel.
Yeah.
And things kind of started falling apart here and there. So hopefully with this one, they actually can pull it off. Because I think it would be neat to see some of the things that they're talking about actually be features available to us.
Good stuff. All right.